Hello and welcome into the Tuesday show of Illini Drive. I'm your host, Gabby Hajduk, producing with Brendyn today.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back.
Switch up.
I was here yesterday. I'm back. I don't have anything else to do.
Yeah, Josh was feeling a bit under the weather today, so he's going to take a break from the show. Brendyn's learning how to produce, so I'm the host. Really, just a lot of differences today.
A lot of differences today, but
I don't really like this chair as much.
I usually sit on that side, on the other side. Yeah, but a lot of differences today, but I think both of us are getting the experience that we need to. I'm tired, though.
I'm tired. Me and Brendyn did pre-show yoga.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yoga.
But now my legs are kind of like...
My legs are like like a little jello-y.
I'm not built for this.
Yoga's intense. It was funny, but yeah, we're tired. Ready for the Bachelorette tonight. We'll get into that later, but we're going to open up the show with some Illinois football talk. Obviously, a game in 3 days now. That's coming up so fast, considering it's a Friday night game. Obviously, 7 p.m. against Wisconsin in Madison. Illinois kicks off the Big Ten season as 23.5-point underdogs. I'm sure everybody's heard that a lot, that number. The players know that number. Lovey knows that number. They all brought it up in their press conferences so far this week. Like, they know the exact number.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool for them to cool that they are embracing that. And I think they feel a little disrespected. I
mean, I guess they have to kind of embrace the underdog type of mentality, because I don't
think they expected to not be the underdog, but I think they expected the spread to be a little closer.
Yeah, I can see that, but I think playing into the underdog role really helps them. It's what helped them last year against Wisconsin when they came in, or when Wisconsin came to Illinois, and Illinois won on that last second field goal. But that's really all you can do. You can't think that this team is gonna. I don't know. I just feel like this is a lot of stakes are for going on for this game right now.
I agree. I think obviously if Wisconsin loses, that's probably ending their national football playoff contention. When there's kind of room for two Big Ten teams to slide into that this year, which is kind of interesting. So if they lose right off the bat to Illinois, that's kind of down the drain for them, I would say. And then in terms of Illinois, kind of a lot of people are expecting them to go like 1-7, 2-6, or 1-8, I guess, with the extra game, and then 1 or 2 win season, which is crazy because we know they're better, or we think they're going to be better from last year, and they went around 500 last year. So implications for both teams, but we'll obviously be previewing that more tomorrow and Thursday. So we're going to talk about a couple different players. One, I'm going to ask you, Brendyn, first. Who is the player you're most excited to see? It can be a freshman, can be someone who started last year, could be someone coming back from injuries. Just who are you most excited to see take the field this season?
I think I'm most excited to see Donnie Navarro play. Obviously, he was like the feel-good story of last year. Came in, was pretty much the only productive receiver when they played Minnesota. Off a couple performances, he was granted a scholarship. He was a walk-on transfer from Valparaiso University, and then caught actually a touchdown in that Wisconsin game. He's fitting in really well to this system. He's projected to be a starter. Whenever they sing clips of him, he looks really good. I think he can fit in well and kind of complement Josh Imatorbhebhe with his deep routes. I think Donnie Navarro is pretty technical with his routes, so look for him to get open in this receiving core, in this offense, who looks to be an offense that could be really high power. I think Donnie Navarro is definitely going to get his touches in this offense. Yeah,
I think Donnie Navarro's interesting because you saw him play a lot last year, mostly because of injuries. Obviously, you had Ricky Smalling go down, Trayvon Sidney. I'm blanking on someone else went down. So he kind of stepped in, and he played really well, and he earned a scholarship off of it. Can he do that now? Can he fight for a starting position is, I think, the biggest thing. And I think he can. I think he proved himself. It's just kind of about now he has a new role on the team. Like, he's not trying to fit in with the team. He's not trying to prove himself anymore. He's proven himself as a solid, I would say, go-to option. But now he has to prove himself as, like, the go-to starter.
Yeah, I think last year, because of the injuries you talked about, he was really He played a lot because of those injuries, and they were kind of forced to have him play. And I mean, in that force, he made really good plays. But this is the season where there's a lot of talent, and hopefully, obviously, they stay healthy. But if I talked to him, I wrote a story about him in April or May, and he just wants to keep getting better. He wants to earn that starting spot. Because he doesn't want his story to end as the guy who got a scholarship. He wants to actually do a lot. He's from Naperville. This is his home state university. He wants to do a lot for this team and help them be successful in the Big Ten. And I think he's poised to do that with this receiving core.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we've all probably talked about just how crazy this offense can be in terms of talent and just experience if they can all mesh together. I mean, just the receiving group, Casey Washington coming back off of a pretty strong freshman campaign. Mm-hmm. Donnie Navarro, obviously Josh Imatorbhebhe, who's going to be your number one guy. You have Trayvon Sidney healthy again. You look to see Lovie Smith has mentioned Kyron Cumbie a lot and getting involved in like the short pass game. The run game is very fast, and then you just look to the three-headed monster in the tight end group. Daniel Imatorbhebhe. Obviously, we don't really know exactly what he's going to do, what he's going to provide, but if he's anything like Josh, he'll make an impact. And then, obviously, Daniel Barker, we've seen what he can do. And then Luke Ford is probably I'll get to my player, but Luke Ford's probably my second player I'm most excited to see.
Yeah, I think all of
he's just
Illini fans are so excited to see him. He's a big dude. He was poised to be a starter at Georgia. And transferred because of the fact that he wanted to play in front of his grandfather, things like that. Obviously, wasn't able to play last year, but this year looks ready. Looks
the worst transfer rules.
This year looks ready, looks fit, looks excited to play for the Illini. This is a guy that you want to see in the draft in a year or two. So it's exciting. It's exciting that Illinois is getting that type of talent.
Again, I think Luke Ford is obviously going to play with a different energy. I think this year. Obviously, it's really heartbreaking because his grandpa did pass away earlier this year, so he never got a chance to see him play at the collegiate level, which is so heartbreaking. But I think that'll just add an extra reason to really go out. I'm sure, obviously not going to speak for him, but I'm sure that's just something in the back of his mind that he's been thinking about. My player that I'm most excited to see, and I think it's the obvious choice, and I think, Brendyn, you went with the not obvious choice, so I'm going to go with the obvious choice. Okay. Marquez Beeson. Mm-hmm. He's the best recruit Illinois has gotten in several years. Mm-hmm. Had offers from literally any Division I Power 5 program that you can think of. Obviously, LSU was pursuing him hard. Clemson had offered him. Minnesota, Michigan, all the big teams had offered him. We got him. Not sure how they pulled that off. But he obviously got hurt at training camp last year, so we haven't even gotten to see him play yet. He's just looked so athletic. He's obviously fast. He played both positions, wide receiver and DB in high school. He punt return. I mean, I feel like he could do a little bit of everything. I know I said kind of on our podcast the other day that what if they were going to use him in the punt return game? Obviously, I don't think that'll actually happen considering he already had a major injury, so let's not push it further. But he's definitely going to start. He's going to start with Nate Hobbs, maybe Tony Adams, Sidney Brown. That's a pretty solid group, and the rest of them are experienced. But Marquez is coming in with no college experience yet, but just based on his talent, I think he'll fit in perfectly with the secondary. Mm-hmm. But in case you do have those little freshman type slip-ups or first-year type slip-ups, you have a really solid, veteran group behind you. Yeah,
I think it's very exciting for him to come in. Last year, wasn't he poised to be a starter or at least get big minutes? And for a true freshman in a defense that has to play in the Big Ten, I mean, that's saying a lot. Obviously, unfortunately, had that foot injury, kept him out the whole year. But this year, you can only hope that, one, sitting behind those guys, watching how they played last year, and two, just one, getting his body better. The difference between an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old is just so much. Two, being able to watch a lot more film, being smarter, learning the college game because it's a lot different than the high school game. And just, honing his skills that made him such a highly touted recruit. You have to be excited for him. You have to be excited for this defense. Obviously, was very good at creating turnovers last year. You hope you get the same type of success because that put Illinois in a lot of games that maybe they shouldn't have been in terms of just their offensive and defensive talent alone. But hey, that's the game of football. So I think that he's going to be a great addition. I think that he's going to be a premier back that's going to be on this, premier back that's going to be on this team for the next 2-3 years maybe. That can really solidify this defensive talent, and hopefully more recruits that look at him and say, "Oh man, I can go to Illinois and start maybe my first year if I stay healthy, because that's how good I am." Where maybe if I went to LSU or went to Clemson, I'd have to sit a year or two before I'd actually get playing time. We'll look at Illinois more of as an option, like Marquez Beeson did.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the big thing is, obviously, I don't have the stats pulled up in front of me, but I feel like a lot of Illinois' takeaways, Lovey likes the word takeaways, not turnovers. Takeaways.
Makes sense.
A lot of their takeaways last year were close to the line, I would say. Obviously, Jake Hansen forced a lot of fumbles. So I feel like they were more on the run game. Obviously, there were a couple like key interceptions, and Tony Adams had that one against Wisconsin. I'm pretty sure Sidney Brown had like a pick six.
I was watching that Tony Adams interception.
That was
what a great play, because he was on the tight end that took that under route. As soon as he saw the quarterback throwing it deep, or not deep, but like deeper than Tony Adams was, flipped his hips and was just right there for the ball. That was a great play.
Well, without that play, I don't.
Oh no, I don't think they win. Well, because they get that third down conversion if he doesn't intercept the ball.
The game's probably over.
So
yeah, so I think Beeson is just going to add an extra layer to the takeaway game that Lovie Smith loves to play. So I feel like the secondary might get more takeaways than the front core.
You think so?
I think.
Well, I mean, that'd be good. Obviously,
I feel like they're not going to get beat. They got beat a lot last year.
They did, and that's the thing, is that
they were running on like fumes because they were all hurt. So they're just like doing this rotation of like half injured players or guys that like were not ready to play at the Big Ten level.
And that's the thing about this defense we talk about all the time. While they were great at takeaways and turnovers, they also let up a lot of pass yards. They let up a lot of rushing yards. So I think it's all just going to depend. Obviously, it's a tricky thing. Turnovers are very, very situational. It's not something you can really predict, like, oh, I'm going to go get a fumble. I'm going to go strip the ball on this one. I'm going to go get an interception on this one. But it's definitely situational. But, who knows? I mean, this is a very, very talented defensive back group. If they stay healthy and if they stay motivated throughout the year, they could very well, there could be more interceptions than fumbles this year.
All right, my second player question before we go to break. Which player needs to break out this year? Which player do you need to see more from, who needs to take a step up? Who's that for you?
I think you could throw anybody that plays on the defensive line in this list, but I'm going to go Isaiah Gay.
Okay,
obviously has been the person on the line who's been there the most consistently and really hasn't exceeded any expectations. Obviously, with that horrific injury to Bobby Roundtree, you lost a lot of talent on that defensive line. But you're going to have to step up. This is a team that got ran over a lot of times last year, and especially in this weird season where a lot of teams are going to be figuring out, what they can do against opposing defenses. You're going to face a lot of run. You're going to face a lot of ground and pound, especially, you look at Ohio State, you look at Wisconsin, especially, you look at Michigan, they're going to try to run you over because, it's hard to kind of just, especially this early in the season, rely on your pass. So the defensive line is going to have to establish the line. They can't get blown off, and they're going to have to do what they can to stop the run. And I think it starts with Isaiah Gay.
Well, yeah, I definitely agree. I don't think he's really met a lot of expectations, not even exceeding them, obviously. So I think, obviously, Batiku, Wale Batiku, oh my God, I can't say Batiku.
Wale Batiku
was the most efficient guy in the D-line last year, which isn't saying much considering he was injured for a lot of the Big Ten games, but still put up the most production. That's probably not the best stat to have. It's no secret the D-line is the weakest part of this team. We talked about this a lot in the podcast, but especially with Wisconsin, they're going to come out and run the ball. Especially they have this new redshirt freshman quarterback who has to take the position because Jack Cohn got injured a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, the D-line, obviously Isaiah Gay being one of the more experienced veterans is going to have to take that role. I agree. I guess I'll go with I'm going to go with Chase Brown in the running back group.
Okay.
I think Dre Brown and Reggie Corbin had probably, 90% of the carries last season.
Yeah, something crazy.
Mike Espn got hurt first game again. Chase Brown couldn't play until I think the Michigan game maybe. Or not Michigan. I don't know. Halfway through the season he was able to play, but obviously kind of being thrown right into the fire. So didn't see too much consistent playing time. But I hate to say it, but Mike Espn, you can't rely on him being your main guy because he's so injury prone, which is so unfortunate because he's shown in flashes that he's really talented. So I think they're gonna have to rely on Chase Brown to be like the consistent force, at least to begin the season, to rely on him a lot. And I think I've talked to both of them, Espn and Brown, and they've both said there's definitely more speed in the running back group this year. I feel like Dre Brown could just get through anybody.
Yeah.
And Reggie Corbin just was a phenomenal runner. He's just so good. But I think they did lack a little speed and just the ability to just go, just straight up take it all the way down the field.
Right. 100%.
So, and I think that's exciting to see because if they can just, especially with such a good offensive line that Illinois has, if they can just find a hole and break away, save Brandon Peters from trying to score the touchdown every drive. So I think Chase Brown is going to be a big X factor if he comes out and can compete consistently at the Big Ten level. I think that just elevates the offense.
Right, exactly.
Because we're all expecting Brandon Peters to come out and have a really good season. All his targets that he has, wide receivers, tight ends. But like you kind of just said, this year I feel like a lot is going to come down to the run game for a lot of teams. And if Illinois can establish that from early on, especially at Wisconsin, because they have such a tough defense. We obviously know the type of linebackers they produce. So if Illinois can just establish some sort of run game against Wisconsin, I think it'll be really impressive.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. Chase Brown is obviously somebody you want to see step up. I'm also looking at Jakari Norwood.
Yeah.
I know he's been touted as one of those speed guys out of the backfield.
I didn't know this, and Gavin tweeted it the other day, and I guess everybody knew this. He's cousins with Lamar Jackson.
I had no idea. Well, you have to assume that, Illinois is just really good at recruiting in Florida. So you have to assume that, which is obviously where Lamar Jackson's from, you have to assume that one of these days you're going to get somebody who is, I mean, we've seen it with, who else have we seen it with? Trent Frazier knows him.
Yeah, Trent Frazier does know.
Lamar Jackson, when Trent Frazier hit that 3/4 of
tweeted at him.
Yeah, he tweeted at him. So, I mean, that's just what's going to happen when you know so many people in Florida.
It's true.
Yeah, it's wild. But and then I'm also looking at Reggie Love, see what he can do. Obviously, he's a true freshman, but it was a really big recruit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm excited for this run game. I think there's a lot of questions because nobody has really established themselves as the premier back. But as we see, even in the NFL, you don't really need a premier back to have a good running game. It all just depends on situation and depends on the offensive line, which is obviously a good thing for Illinois because they have a pretty good offensive line. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see, and I think the running game definitely needs to be established because as soon as you establish the run game and people are scared of your run, man, that field is going to open up for Brandon Peters, and that's really something that we need to. Yeah, we need to be successful as Brandon Peters with a lot of one-on-one coverages with these receivers.
All right, we're going to take our first break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about ESPN's NFL Power Rankings because Brendyn is upset and he has a word. So we'll be back after the break. This is Illini Drive. Welcome back to Illini Drive. We're going to get into some NFL talk. ESPN put out Week 7 Power Rankings, and this is kind of sad. They joined it. Usually they make a point about the team or what went well the previous week or what went wrong. This week's point is most impactful injury. I think that just goes to show the amount of horrific season-ending injuries that we've seen this year. It's really upsetting, and I think The only major explanation is obviously they're not being a normal training camp, a normal off season. And I think that's a pretty legit reason as to why there's so many injuries, which is so unfortunate. But let's get into the power rankings. At number 1, staying at number 1 from last week, Seattle Seahawks 5-0. I agree with that. I think the Seahawks are playing out of their mind right now, at least offensively. Their defense is a little. I feel like their
defense is a little iffy, but their offense has just been insane. Russell Wilson is playing at an MVP level. Their receivers are really good. DK Metcalf is looking like one of the best, or not the best, but one of the better receivers. I say probably top 15 in the league.
I would say top 10 right now.
Easily could be in that conversation. The way he's playing, I would like to see him.
Tyler Lockett's playing really well too.
Tyler Lockett is also playing really well. That offense is just really good. And, Russell Wilson is just doing Russell Wilson things, of course.
It looks like the defense is averaging about 26, 27 points given up per game. But I feel like this year in general is just a more high-scoring year for the NFL.
They also played the Seahawks. They played some teams that are high-scoring. I'm trying to pull it up right now.
Falcons.
They played the Falcons. They played the
25
Cowboys.
points. Patriots 30.
Right.
Cowboys 31. Dolphins 23. Vikings 26.
So they played the Cowboys and the Patriots and the Falcons, who are all high-scoring teams. The Dolphins, who have been surprisingly better than we thought they were.
And they held them to the least amount of points.
Right. And then the Vikings, who have a lot of offensive talent, and it seems like they're just kind of getting that together. So it's not like they've played any, really bad teams.
I think it's hard to judge defenses this year on the score because I feel like the offenses are just, I don't know why this year. There's just a lot of offensive production this year.
I just think the quarterback play is probably the best that we've seen
in a while.
In a while. And I also think that, I don't know, the receivers are really good. And it's also, the fact that these defenses are trying to scheme, and it's the same thing with everything. They've had less time. They've had, less preparation. Yeah. So, but there has been a lot of offensive talent this season so far.
At number 2, Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's a pretty respectable ranking.
Yeah, that's fair.
You could even argue that they're the best team still in the league, even though they have the one loss coming to the Las Vegas Raiders 2 weeks ago now, which was kind of surprising. But the Raiders aren't playing bad.
No, the Raiders have been playing pretty well.
Playing pretty well. So, the Chiefs were bound. Every team's bound to lose at some point. No team's going to go undefeated this year. So they're bound to lose at some point.
And this is where we begin to disagree.
Coming at number 3, your one and only, the true best organization, true America's team, Pittsburgh Steelers.
Why is Pittsburgh America's team? Whoever wants to go to Pittsburgh.
They were one of the first teams in the league. There are more Steelers fans around the country than Cowboys fans. And
I'm not arguing that.
I think Steelers.
I'm not arguing that
the most fans ever.
I don't know. I'd have to see some graph about that.
Okay, I'll find one.
Find a graph.
Steelers fans are the best fans in the NFL. They travel the best.
That's what everybody says about their team, though.
Okay,
but I agree with you that the Cowboys shouldn't be America's team, but that doesn't mean I'm about to sit here and say that the Steelers should be.
I am. Anyways, we don't have to argue about that. Steelers at number 3. They're 5-0. Their most impactful injury, I think, is a huge one.
They would have been 5-1 if they had to play the Titans.
We'll see. Anyways, they're 5-0. They're 5-0. You can't argue with the numbers.
I can't.
Most impactful injury, linebacker Devin Bush. That's such a blow. Such a blow. Season-ending ACL injury. And I think it was the second quarter. Okay, second quarter of. And I'm just mad because not that he should have been taken out because it was only the second quarter, but they were up so much.
Yeah,
but there's no actual reason to take them out. But still,
it's unfortunate, especially this year with all the injuries that we've seen.
He's just been you hate to see it because
right. Even from the start of last year when he got drafted, he's just been really, really good. You hate to see a rising defensive superstar taken out like that for the rest of the season.
And inside linebackers, the Steelers' least deep position. Backup Robert Spillane came in and actually played really well. I'm pretty sure he had a sack or he got to Baker Mayfield or maybe it was Case Keenum by that point. At one point, but the big thing is Bush calls the play. Like, he's the play caller for the defense. So Spillane had to come in and do that.
It's a huge thing.
Huge thing. And he did it well. I mean, they ended up well, but I don't know. I personally, and I'll be honest, ranking at number 3 is wrong.
It's a little high.
Because they're above the Ravens. And I think the Ravens are a better team. So I'd probably switch. I think the Steelers are better than the Titans. And you think differently. I think I would switch the Steelers and the Ravens. Because Ravens are number 4 right below the Steelers.
So you'd have...
I'd have Ravens 3, Steelers 4.
Okay.
And then Titans still at 5.
Okay. I could agree with that more than this.
I don't think the Steelers are a better, or at least they haven't shown yet that they're a better team than the Ravens. I think the Steelers have a lot of talent. I think Cleveland's game was the first game they put the defense and the offense together, and they both worked well. Because usually with the Steelers so far this season, which happens a lot, is that the defense plays well, the offense is horrible. Offense plays well, defense doesn't. Mm-hmm. They're always like bailing each other out. I think this is a really good game where both sides played well, but this is the first game that's happened. So I have to see going forward what happens. They play the Titans this coming week in the rescheduling game, and then they play the Ravens. So these next 2 weeks are going to be a true test.
Derrick Henry's looking scary.
He is looking scary, but Steelers are so good at stopping the run.
Yeah. But they haven't seen Derrick Henry yet.
Exactly. So
we'll see what happens.
And next 2 weeks are a true test.
Also, Ryan Tannehill is playing really, really good.
Yeah.
He has, in the last, I think it's 14, 15 games, which obviously carries over to last season. He has very similar stats to Patrick Mahomes. So it's very...
Yeah, they're a dangerous team.
He's a very dangerous team. So, we'll see what happens. Obviously, I think the Steelers are a pretty good team. It's just...
They have to prove themselves against this. They play... Titans, Ravens, Cowboys. And Cowboys aren't playing bad. Andy Dalton's not
Cowboys
bad.
played really bad last night.
Well, they did last night. But they...
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to see. But it wasn't Andy Dalton's fault. They just had so many penalties.
Their offensive line got I think they had like 2 or 3 offensive linemen get injured just last night. Zeke fumbled twice.
Yeah.
It was a bad day.
It was a bad day. They embarrassed themselves. But so we are good with that. 6 Green Bay Packers, they obviously had their first loss against Tampa Bay. Aaron Rodgers did not play well. At all. He looked really, really bad. But he was bound to have a bad game. He came into the game, no interceptions.
Yeah. And then he threw 2 in the first half.
And got me 3 points in fantasy.
Sorry about that. Next one is obviously Tampa Bay. I think that could be switched, especially because Tampa Bay just beat them bad. And it's not like Tampa Bay... That was a fluke game.
Tampa Bay's good. I don't think it's all meshed together yet. I think they have a lot of solid weapons. They've obviously had injuries at the wide receiver position. So I think Tom Brady's still finding his footing in the system and with these other guys. But Tom Brady's always going to win. He's always going to be a winner. He's never going to be out of a season at all. So that's interesting. Then you go down 8 and 9, Bills, Saints. Bills are really good. They're legit.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Saints.
The Saints have scared me because Drew Brees hasn't played well, but I'm also always scared to count them out, especially because Michael Thomas hasn't played since week 2.
Exactly. And obviously we've heard a lot of weird things about that.
Yeah.
Just him getting into fights with teammates. But their defense hasn't been...
Their defense is off and on, too.
Yeah. I would say they're more off than on.
So it'll be interesting to see what that's like. But this is where it gets interesting. Then you have the LA Rams at 10, and then sitting outside the top 10, which I disagree with, is the Bears. I think that, obviously, if you guys have listened to me, the first 4 games were very, very fluky, but I think the last 2 games have shown that this team, that defense is really, really real. Obviously, Nick Foles is still getting his footing in this offense, but this team knows how to win. They get wins. And while all their games have been decided by one possession, basically, this team is still capable of beating good teams. When you look at the LA Rams, their only wins have come from the NFC East, who's been the laughing stock of the league for the past 2 years, right?
They're so funny.
There's literally somebody mathematically calculated it, and the Cowboys could win the NFC East with 4 wins, you shouldn't be in the playoffs at all.
That's terrifying. No, I think you guys have a lot to be proud of with the Bears. The defense. The defense was a little shaky the first couple games. They
100%.
They had flashes, but they still weren't consistent. I think you saw it against Tampa Bay especially, how dominant they can be. Khalil Mack is freaking amazing. He's just insane. I think you guys are starting to establish the run a little better. I don't think it's fully there, but you got to work through it. I think the biggest thing you should be proud of is the way Nick Foles talked in that post-game interview.
I talked to Nathan about it yesterday. Man.
That, made me want to be a Bears fan, which, whoa.
I love how he shouted out Meek Mill, too. He said, I only really listen to country music or Christian rap, but when Meek Mill comes on, that Dreams and Nightmares, I say, you know what? You got me right there, Nick. I'll play Dreams and Nightmares every freaking day for you.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I feel like Mitch never showed that kind of, intensity and that kind of drive to want to win. Not trying to, obviously, the comparison's done. Nick Foles is the starter, but I think that's just the biggest thing. I think this Bears team is going to lose a couple more games. I don't expect them to keep riding out winning, but I think there's a lot of passion and chemistry in that locker room,
yeah,
and
100%.
I think that kind of came more to light when Nick Foles came in. We'll go through a couple more. 12 at 12 is the Colts.
The Colts defensively are amazing.
Offense.
A little sketchy. Phillip Rivers is sketchy.
Phillip is sketchy. Jonathan Taylor is great. But Phillip, might be time to be done, sir. I hate to say it.
Yeah, he had to get that bag. He had to rob the Colts one time before he retired. He knew he ain't have it.
He knew. And then 13, laugh in your face. Cleveland Browns, you are not good. Baker, you're not good. Odell, get traded.
Oh my God. What?
No, Odell's good. He deserves to have a good quarterback.
Oh,
That's
you were
what I'm
just
saying.
going after everybody. I thought you were about to be like, Odell,
No,
not good.
I'm saying he deserves better. Baker's, and I know he was playing with an injury, but
I also think a lot of it,
and they couldn't establish any sort of run game because the Steelers line.
Which is something that's very new to the Browns because they were able to get this winning streak off of.
Baker got hit, I would say, 15 times. Maybe not 15, 12.
Yeah.
He got hit every drive.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you have a pass rush like the Steelers have. Baker's obviously off and on throughout his whole career, and I think there's times where it really shows that he doesn't know how to just sit back in the pocket and make those throws. Even, I mean, that first game that Odell had 3 touchdowns or whatever. I can't remember who they were playing. Most of Odell's touchdowns were trick plays, right? Another receiver threw one. The other one was a rush that probably should have been loss of 15 yards. Odell is just great. And then the other one was a goal line fade or something like that. So Baker Mayfield, to me, is just not somebody that can go out there and win you a game. But it's weird because they have a lot of talent, and they're going to have to figure out how to win the game. And usually throughout this year, it was establishing the run and being able to run on people, and that obviously did not work against the Steelers. So it'll be interesting to see where the Browns go from here. But I don't think they're totally out of it.
No,
especially when there's that 7 teams that make the playoffs.
They have the easiest schedule left, also.
Yeah, so they could easily find themselves into a wild card. I still think the Ravens are going to win the division, but they could easily find themselves into a wild card spot. Don't act like the Steelers have had this tough schedule so far either. So looking over here to the producer's chair.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. Those are obviously the top teams in the NFL right now. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back on Illini Drive, we're going to stray away from sports a little. We'll be back. Hello and welcome back to Illini Drive. We're going to wrap things up with The Bachelorette, because I am your one and only Illini Drive WPGU 1071 Bachelor Insider in the house. Me tonight. 5 minutes.
Basement of the Y.
8
Meet us
minutes
there.
before episode 2.
Claire Crowley. Gated first impression road to Dale. Shoulda went to Blake. But it didn't. Cause she's bogus.
Blake.
Isn't that his name?
Who's Blake?
The dude that she kissed. That's his name. The dude that she kissed first. It's Blake.
Let me just
And Dale's the dude she's in love with.
The reason why I don't remember is because episode 1 was the worst Bachelor episode I've ever watched. I actually don't think I've watched a worse episode across any TV show I've ever watched. Mm-hmm. That's saying a lot. Ever. Think of another one. I mean, like, what?
That's just funny you said ever, which I'd have to think about it.
Everything was bad. There was no...
Yeah, his name was Blake.
Okay, Blake Schmake. I don't know any of their names. The only person I know is Dale, because that's the one who she basically ends the show for, which isn't even a spoiler. Everybody knows it. We have to sit through 3 more episodes of Claire just for her to leave. Like, that doesn't even... That's frustrating. I don't care about her.
Maybe not. All these game cancellations, there's bound to be another Tuesday night game. You know?
Yeah.
Pretty soon. Maybe we don't have to sit through the Bachelor.
You don't have to. But I guess it's good to get to know the guys, and we're going to be able to see their reaction in a couple weeks when Tayshia joins the show as the new Bachelorette. Mm-hmm. But tonight we're going to see probably the first one-on-one date and the first group date. You have to assume she's taking Dale on the one-on-one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, I mean, first impression rose. Like,
yeah, you might as well.
Especially
if you think you found love with this man.
Yeah, well, she doesn't know yet. But
she
did say
that's what you want your first date to be.
Yeah. And then group date should be interesting.
Blake getting in there.
Yeah, probably. I heard there's some drama with the group date this week.
Really?
Yeah.
In what fashion, do you know?
Like, some guy who didn't get picked to be on it, like, creates drama. I think it's the guy who was allegedly DMing that other girl.
Talking about Yosef?
Yes.
See, I don't really like Yosef, but I don't like the other dude more because you can't just go in there and snitch day one. You know what I mean?
He's already gone.
Yeah, and that's why he's
already gone. But now Yosef's just going to screw up his chances. Like, he came in weird.
He was
I didn't
weird.
like the way he was acting. He was acting a little too stuck up for me. Mm-hmm. Not really about that. I'm excited to see what level of interest Dale has in Claire.
Okay.
But we've seen, obviously, the previews to the season. Like, ABC has aired, like, obviously, like, other previews of what's going to happen. And they're literally, like, in bed together at one point.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because that never happens. And, like, you're not allowed to spend the night with anybody until Fantasy Suites when there's only 4 guys left. Mm-hmm. Or girls left for The Bachelor. So, clearly, something fishy is going to happen real quick. Like, this is going to escalate pretty quickly. We're going to head out a little early so we can catch The Bachelor. And so Brendyn and Nathan can give you a proper recap tomorrow.
3 days in a row, I'll be here.
Brendyn is a grinder this week. Shout out, Brendyn.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for bearing with us today as me and Brendyn switched roles a little bit. Brendyn will be with you guys tomorrow. This has been Illini Drive.